So the Florida State Board of Trustees has unanimously voted to sue the ACC and challenge the legality of the grant of rights and that $130 million exit fee, which of course with TV rights included blows up to about $600 million, most estimates say. Welcome into the Voice of College Football special edition here, Florida State Seminoles Live. We join you each and every Wednesday. So join us every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern time for our standard Florida State live show with Chris Frazier, Spear-Radix, Big Game James Coleman from Den Media Group, Georgitis, and Renegade Report. We got Chris Frazier on the road from Spear-Radix. Chris, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Got you clear as I can.
Very good. Very good. Well, Chris, so we're going to tap your knowledge on this and get through this. So we know that you have been running all over the place and doing your own live stream. So everybody, Spear-Radix with Chris right here on YouTube. Check out Chris's recent live stream today and all the other information, all the other content that he's got provided. Chris, now that you've gone through the documents with the meeting today, what was stated in public, what you know about the background of this entire situation. Obviously, I know that this is a move you support. How confident are you that this is going to be able to carry through?
I'm extremely confident that Florida State ends up out of the ACC conference. The how-to is still in the question. I don't think that Florida State would have filed for any type of lawsuit with having a good grip on whether it's a legality purpose that you can use to get out, which I think breach of contract is going to be the best one. Also, the breach of trust because they didn't defend the brands that support the ACC, especially with this year with the college football playoff invitational. I loved the fact that President McCullough used those exact terms in the conversation and when he spoke. To me, I think that Florida State's already got. I'm just going to throw this out there. I think that Florida State's got the necessity, not wanting to use anywhere near $572 million to get out of it, but they've got some plan up their sleeve. Maybe it's our Saudi buddies. I'm not sure, but I feel like that Florida State would not have went this far if they didn't feel extremely comfortable with the opportunity that they see forth in front of them. I think that the legal team that's been working on this for over a year has found enough loopholes in what they can see. Because just like they said, the majority of the contract that they have is from 2013, 2016. So they don't even have the updated copy of the actual executed contract for the media rights with the ACC. It seems very unprecedented that you can, not get all the signatures that are necessary to raise 240% of the operational cost of the ACC, for you to have to turn around and lift that 240% with, behind closed doors. No one knows. You're just basically adding to the Constitution of what it is, or you're adding to the rules. I think that's very sneaky and shady. I think that's another big point that they're going to argue this. I don't think personally that it ever gets to court. I could be wrong. Maybe the ACC is going to be very stubborn with this and will make it, but I doubt it. I think they're going to settle this as quick as they possibly can, which still maybe within a 6 month to a year possibility. But I don't think the Florida State waits around, regardless of how long they push this, to go ahead and give their exit plan out of the ACC based off of the things that I've been told behind doors. Is pretty cool as far as they're not worried about the money part. If it comes to that, it comes to that. That's a wow factor within itself, because we know that at the worst, at the very most, you're going to have to pay some crazy amount of money to get out of the grant of rights, and also your exit fee. But they also don't believe that the exit fee is constitutional based off of how they added into the amendment. So there's just a numbers of things that I think the ACC has to answer that they don't feel comfortable answering. That's why they plotted to do a lawsuit in North Carolina the night before, and that's it's obvious when you know that the people that are going to go against you have to make it public because of the Sunshine Law here in the state of Florida. So how ironic, how convenient for the ACC to be able to do so. They spoke more and quicker about this situation. They had that statement ready much quicker than they did for the college football invitational when we didn't get in, and it was very lackluster in my eyes for how they tried to defend Florida State because it wasn't a defense at all. So I think there's too many breach of contracts throughout the totality of the past 16 years, let alone just the past 5. So I think that Florida State stands a really good chance, regardless of where this goes, whether it's court, whether it's settlement, whether it's whatever the case may be. I think Florida State's going to be the first one that pushes this, and all these teams that are screaming Florida State's been too loud, Florida State's doing this the wrong way, they're going to ride our coattails right on the way out. I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, you said a lot of great things there. And one would be to start out your comments for a lot of people that aren't understanding. Mike Alford, the athletic director at Florida State, obviously jumped on this immediately. And even prior to getting the job, just in his preparation for taking this job on, and knew the situation Florida State was in, wanted to understand it better, wanted to understand how he could combat it, and started to hire consultants and a legal team. So it's not like they threw something together here. Like you say, they've been reviewing this grant of rights for a year and a half to 2 years, and recent events have only given them more, both inside the conference and then with the advancement and the prosperity of the other conferences, namely the Big Ten and the SEC, just giving them more fodder to build a case.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the most important part is that not one board of trustee member opposed the idea or opposed filing the lawsuit. And the reason I think they feel so comfortable with it is because of what they have found out, and what because of what they can use ammunition wise against the ACC, against ESPN, against whoever this needs to be against. I think they feel very comfortable with what information they've gathered based off of what everyone spoke to, like the main lawyer, and then you got 2 lawyers on the staff with Florida State that were on the board of trustees that were talking as far as the blue ink and all of the good stuff that they all look out for, that you learn when you become a lawyer, I suppose. So I'm extremely excited for all of it to come out, because I think the reason it doesn't make it to court is because discovery is going to be an MFer for the ACC and whomever else is in it. They don't want those things seen by the public, and anything that you do with Florida State is going to be made public because it has to be, because of the Sunshine Law. So they're going to do everything in their power to keep as much of this behind closed doors and secret as possible, because then you're going to see even more shadiness than what you've already found in just a very short period of time. I know that 2 years sounds like a long time, but it's really not to go through a case up to this substantiability. I think it's huge. So when you really look in the depths and you get to discover more in the actual contract and all the amendments that were made and all the additives that were done that might not have been by the exact rules that they even put in place for themselves, because they feel like they have all the power. They didn't feel like anyone was going to ever question this. I don't know how, but they felt very comfortable with their contract, that everybody kept calling ironclad, that no one's going to contest this. You're not going to get out. I think Florida State's just at the point where they feel that everything that they have gathered in this short period of time says, I would love to see the court tell us that we can't get out of it. I would love for anyone to tell me that there is not a possibility or a probability that we're not going to get out of this situation because of the shadiness that has went on behind closed doors over the past even 5 years. So I think it's very important for Florida State fans to do nothing but support the situation. Don't freak out. Don't get down. Like everybody's worried about what the ACC referees are going to do to us next season. We can't control that. Regardless of what they do or don't do, you've seen that you can go 13-0 and you don't make it into the college football invitational. So if you want to continue to try to make it into the college football invitational, whether it be 12 teams or 4 teams, you're not going to be respected because of the conference that you lie in. And the conference doesn't respect itself nor anyone that's around it. So I think this is the exact time. It's the perfect timing for Florida State to do exactly what it is that they just did. And I'm ready for the media coverage part of this, because that's what I'm in. That's my business side of it. So it's going to be fun to talk about. It's going to be fun to see just the small parts of discovery that get shown, because they're not going to be able to not show anything. So I think it's going to be vitally important for the ACC to wrap this up as possible, fast as possible as they can, because otherwise, then it allows too much dirt to get out there, and too many people know just how shady all of it is.
Yeah, this is great stuff that you bring to light about the discovery process, because on the surface, it has the look of a grant of rights was signed by the entire conference in 2012. It was extended in 2016 with obviously this 20-year extension to 2036. And then everyone, of course, gladly signed it, or at least knowingly and understandingly signed it without a gun to their head. And the counter debate is obviously on the surface that you should know the value of the sport, and that the other conferences are only gaining momentum and able to negotiate more and more money, and you're locking yourself down. You're giving yourself some level of security, which is something Florida State doesn't need. Syracuse, Virginia, other schools may need it in football, but Florida State doesn't need that protection of security to bind themselves to a contract for 20 years that is only going to be superseded financially by other leagues negotiating every 6, 8, 10 years. Uh, so once that discovery portion of it came into play, and some of the things you're bringing to light right now, and some of the things that we've talked about in recent months with you on our show and heard from you, and that I've picked up from other sources, made me think, okay, well, Florida State's got a case here, or they wouldn't be so bold. They wouldn't be tying up all this legal effort for all this time to do this. And like you, when I read this paragraph, this brought me to the conclusion that I don't think it's going to go all the way to court. And that's that if a judge grants declaratory judgment in favor of Florida State, the school would be able to leave the ACC without penalty. The departure would have to be effective August 14, 2023. There's a retroactive clause there. Florida State could leave the conference in the event of new bylaws being put into place. If the judge declines to issue a judgment in favor of either side, Florida State and the ACC could be sent to mediation to negotiate a resolution, which has obviously happened over and over and over and over throughout college football, especially in the last 15 years. Maryland would be the last example of that in the ACC, when the exit fee was 51 million, I believe, and they negotiated that down to 31 million. And while I get your response, Chris, we'll bring in our buddy Georgitis, Renegade Report. Everybody, Renegade Report. George is all over this, as well as Chris is on Spear Addicts. So those are your destinations: Renegade Report, Spear Addicts, for further Florida State football coverage. George, appreciate you being here. When I want to get this next response from Chris, and then we'll hit you up next.
Yeah, and the biggest sub base to that comes out, when you just read the paragraph that you did about how the judge, basically a worst case scenario, if he doesn't do so, he sends them to mediation to sit there and figure this thing out across the table amongst men and extremely smart women, because our lawyer said there's a lot of females and they're very good at what they do. A lot of people were saying that she looked like this. Anyways, I'm not going to bring that up. She's very good at what she does on top of who's in front of her. But the sub base to that is they feel one of their strongest points is that Florida State and the rest of the conference members were bullied into signing the extension in 2016. It was not explained to them all the new metrics that were going to be added into the contract. They didn't know until 2018, and that's hearsay until that's proven. But they did not know until 2018 that these things had been added, that it had rose 240%, that ESPN could pull out of the contract at any point in time with no penalty. It's a one-sided contract. It's not equal across the board. It is very one-sided for the big money players to be able to dip out if they want. And I think it's really gracious, and they got to figure it out. And ACC needs to do something before something happens worse.
George, before you make your opening statement here, I wonder if the ACC was just at that point. Think about it. So 2017 is when Fox went full bore in on college football. That's when they contracted with the Big Ten in particular, the Big 12, of course, most of its attention and money to the Big 10, and wrapped up all those big games. Started the Big Noon Kickoff went full throttle. They were a minor player in college football. ESPN had everything, every conference, every league. I wonder if, and this was a year prior to Fox branching out, if just the sheer dominance of ESPN intimidated the ACC that they thought, we have no other options. This is who we have to partner with. And maybe the first talks of an ACC network were being made at that point as well, to help maybe soften the blow of, we're going to lock you up for this long and we're going to dictate the terms, but we're also going to build a network for you.
So I got a pretty strong opinion on this, and you touched on it a bit earlier, both of you guys, for y'all's first combination, as I was sitting there waiting to come on. Look, Swafford did a great job negotiating for Wake Forest and Syracuse. You know what I mean? These guys are getting a steroid shot to the arm when they get $45 million. That goes above and beyond when you compare it to their annual football budget, while at the same time you're crippling a Florida State or a Clemson. And that's where that whole 2016 thing comes in to be. The speculation, what they talked about is supposedly ESPN gives ACC an ultimatum. It's like, either you extend this thing or we're not going to pay you. We're not going to guarantee any of the years that's left on the contract. And like you said, it was before Fox made their move. So maybe Swafford was just so scared that he couldn't get anything else and would be stuck in the dry, I guess. But just extremely poor thinking. And also a part of this that goes into it, and it was a big part of the talking points back in the day, like Swafford and these guys were motivated to get this thing signed and just get it done because there's the whole Raycom and the whole, the money machine behind ACC and where the money is distributed and the rights to these games. So there's all that melted into it. At the end of the day, Florida State trusted the ACC to negotiate in good faith for their position, what was best for Florida State and the rest of the teams in the ACC on the lines of competing for national titles in college football, and they didn't do it. And Discovery, I think, would just be terrible because it's that same time when they were negotiating with the Big 12 and supposedly, pushing out teams so that they could get it for a reduced rate, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, that Discovery, can't wait to see if they actually let that go through. If this thing ends up, we just get straight out with $0, like the offer they made, the initial offer today.
And now what the ACC has done has almost taken on the effect of a countersuit to say Florida State's acting, out of good faith, not in good faith, and violating its contract. And now the ACC is obviously, it's not called a countersuit, but they have filed their own suit against Florida State.
Yeah, I don't know how you can file a suit on something like they wanted to beat them, but it was something that hadn't happened yet. They hadn't done it. So I don't know how that works. I'm not a lawyer, but that does seem pretty funny to have a countersuit that's hit a day before the actual suit is lodged. But it just goes just like the ACC, they knew it was coming. But the same thing, I think it was like a year ago, reported on Florida State hiring this legal counsel, and part of it was to do with all the NIL and everything else. But people are kidding themselves if they didn't think for the past year they've had these guys working on it, and they've got North Carolina lawyers on retainer as well, I'm sure, for that that case as well.
Chris, based on your sources, you had mentioned that Florida State has this money, and whatever that dollar amount turns out to be, if it's just the flat 130 or if it's jumped up to 600, I'm sure that's not going to be the case. They'll negotiate it way down from there, or some variance in between or less or whatever it is. Where's this money coming from generally? Is this private money?
So what Florida State had been rumored to do, which I can't confirm nor deny whether they did or did not, they reached out to third-party sources as far as like Chase. They reached out to a multitude of different organizations, private sectors, on the basis of saying, hey, this is what we are worth. This is what we can do over time. Basically, what's the loan that we can get to get out? And it was substantially different than most people would have anticipated. They thought there would be a crazy interest, APR, blah, blah, blah. And then the ingredients part of it, or I should say the invitational piece part, of what you would know or what you would not know is the actual closed doors conversation of, here's what we will give you, this is what we want to do for you, and this is what we need to get back. Basically, how you look at it is, instead of negotiating with the ACC to pay them X amount of money per year, payments basically to pay off however much it is that they want you to pay, you went to a third party sector and said, look, if you will get us out of this, buy us out of this situation, whether it be X amount 130 million or Z amount 572 million, what does it look like for us to pay you back in this amount of time based off of what we would receive if we were in the Big Ten or the SEC? Because all we're looking for is to be competitive throughout the rest of our time, under the contract sources of what we would have to pay the ACC if it came down to that sector. I can't confirm nor deny um, which third party or how many third parties agree to that type of money, and I'm probably talking about something I'm not supposed to. But at worst case scenario, if I can just say it was my opinion of what happened. But I will say that there's been big talks about that behind closed doors between myself and others.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to add to that, and it's poignant. Mark, you brought up where the money would come from if this thing goes to a settlement. And we also talked about the fact that they filed that case the day before over in North Carolina. I think that's the difference, where this venue ends up. If it ends up in Florida, the way Florida's, to my understanding, it's basically all or nothing. Outside of the Senate, of course, you could settle anywhere. So as far as the trial part, it's a better chance of you getting that zero and walk away in Florida. In North Carolina, if it ends up, the priority case in this whole thing ends up being up there, you have a better chance of it, getting halved or dropped down to that 150 to $300 million range that people talk about. And yeah, people joke about, Arab money and this and stuff, but yeah, I agree with 100% with what Chris is saying, and they'll get the money. They'll figure out whatever it takes.
Yeah, my only angle on that was, and I figured that's what it was, something like that, because we're talking about obviously a state university with state funds that taxpayers support. But of course, this is a separate issue. So I'm glad to hear that the Florida State Athletic Department, the entire administration, is going to those lengths to take care of the bill. Appreciate y'all being here at the Voice of College Football, Florida State Live special edition here. These two gentlemen have their own channels, have their own platforms. Please join them. George at Renegade Report, Chris at Spear Addicts. They've done a remarkable job. I've checked out much of what they've been talking about and covering today. And I made the call and they answered it. So I appreciate these two jumping on with us. The snub from the College Football Invitational, and thank you, Chris, for reminding me that, because I'm not saying that I coined the phrase, but I may have been one of the first, because I started saying that back in 2014 when it was originally announced. 2013, it's an invitational, and I've been lazy and forgotten my own term many times, but I'm going to try to stay disciplined with the College Football Invitational because that's flat out what it is. Now, Florida State was taking all this action regardless of this snub. However, my viewpoint on this snub is basically, for as horrible as it is and for as bad a judgment call by the committee, based on the criteria, they have every right to do it. It's an invitational. They make the selections. However, much like anything that happens in this manner behind closed doors, what I'm interested in is how they came to that conclusion. Who forced them possibly into that decision? What powers that be, ESPN and otherwise, forced the hand, the SEC, versus them just as football people, as people that were charged to do this, select the 4 best teams, that they made their own decision, whether good or bad, on their own merits, and looked at the situation in the teams and made that evaluation, for as poorly as it might have been, at least made an honest decision versus a coerced decision. And that's what you're talking about with Discovery, at least, in this small situation. But the most recent one that's obviously hit the college football world and is the most obvious, egregious situation, which shows what precarious situation Florida State is in being in the ACC.
Yeah, for sure. And you also said, you pointed out the invitational. Another good thing, I love the shot that they got in, the way they worded it. It was a big 10 a.m. Board of Trustees meeting. So I don't know if anybody caught that they slipped in there. They didn't throw Big Ten anywhere in it, but they did say that they had a big 10 a.m. thought meeting. So I thought that was pretty damn cool. They could have scheduled it anytime, but yeah, when you get into that discovery, it's so deep. If you haven't seen the USA Network show Suits, it really is all about these big suits with these giant entities, and you go looking for one thing and you never know what you're going to find. The thing that ESPN or the ACC really doesn't want anybody to see may have nothing to do with Florida State and the grant of rights thing, but it's right there on that same text thread of, that we got access to. So that's a scary thing. And you have to know human nature. It's like when John Gruden, when the NFL decided to get him out of there, it's like, there's enough data. They're going to do discovery until they find something. And so that's what we've got to trust these lawyers to do for Florida State. Like you talked about, find that smoking gun, the guy that, whatever the force be that really forced our hand, turn that gun on them. And hopefully that 2016 ultimatum can really be that spot.
Hey, Chris, what George just brought up, I completely missed it in regards to the big 10 a.m. meeting here by the Florida State Board of Trustees, that there might have been a little, obviously was, if they pointed that out, a little, they play on words and read between the lines. Why, for a school that has more connections on the football field with the SEC, are both of you, and I'll start with Chris, more adamant and determined to get into the Big Ten?
I think it just gives you a bigger possibility of nationality. And what I mean by that is becoming a national conference when it comes to the Big Ten. You cannot downplay the possibilities of playing in the shoe, playing in the big house with Michigan. You can't downplay what those are. They're basically bowl games throughout the entire year. I mean, especially for the first 3 to 4 years. You look at Florida State playing them every other year. Also think about going and playing the Rose Bowl against USC because they're being added, going and playing in Eugene with Oregon. It's just, I think, bigger money games. That's why I think that Fox and CBS and whomever else is in the contract with Big Ten have zero issues with forking out the kind of money that they're talking about, because that is basically what you're getting throughout the entirety of the year just by adding Washington, Oregon, USC. I think it was UCLA or somebody of that nature. Um, it, to add those types of teams is huge. But the bigger portion for me is the portion of Florida State becoming an AAU member. Not that it's a necessity to do so before you enter the conference or even while you're in the conference. It is recommended and would be very liked if you do so. But what type of research money that brings to your academic side, and it lifts where Florida State wants to be a top 10, top 5 public university when it comes to academics. This doesn't do anything besides allow you to do that when you start sharing research money with a multitude of AAU members. We already do a lot of things with Ohio State and Michigan already that are on a separate entity of private, but it's even bigger when you're allowed to open up all books and information to all schools of doing the same type of research of what they can team up together to do, etc. Because we're huge in agriculture down here in Florida. We're about to be very huge when it comes to medical research with the new facility that's being built. And we also, whether people like it or not, that we share it with FAMU, we're huge in civil and infrastructural engineering. And it brings a lot to the table for the Big Ten Conference and the schools that are inside of it, on top of what it brings to Florida State.
And I got to think that based on all your interactions, both of you, with Florida State fans, that this was something that when this was first talked about, that the large majority were in on the SEC just because of the football aspect of it. And maybe with a lot of these points, and you just very eloquently laid out a lot of things that I'm not aware of, but other things that we've talked about, and certainly you guys on your respective channels have talked about for a long time, in outlining the advantages of the Big Ten that I would think more of Knoll Nation has come around to that line of thinking in the last several months.
Yeah, no doubt. Oh, my bad.
No, I'm sorry, George, but absolutely. The fan base, obviously, before anything happened with the college football playoff, invitational, picking us out being, completely teamed up with ESPN. See, here's the difference. ESPN has the opportunity. If they see, as far as media goes, there's exit for ESPN. But if they would split the SEC, and it's a huge exit portion of like $1.8 billion if they try to leave covering the SEC.
Yeah, I was just going to point out, just going right along with what you're saying, and kind of what Mark's question was, another big thing is you can't erase this history. Like, even if like we kissed and made up and somehow the ACC got a contract with ESPN that was favorable and did work out for the future, or we went to the SEC, and got there where we got the equal pay and get to play those big games against Bama and LSU every year. Well, ESPN has still, we still got this nasty taste in our mouth. We still are like number 5 of who they want to push, after Bama, after Georgia, after all these things. Fox has shown, even like you watch their shows and stuff throughout the year, like they talk about FSU as if it is one of these elite programs. They give it its just due, and just the difference in the marketing. Like when you go to Big Ten, they're gonna try to maximize that property. They're going to be psyched to get their hands on that Florida State property. Miami or Florida ESPN's made 10 Miami documentaries and nothing for, Bobby Bowden. He had to go out and make his own documentary for him to play on ACC Network. So, there's just so many things. And, travel's overblown, all them things. But I think having a partner in Fox, throughout the Big Ten. Also, the playoff, you spoke about it, or the invitational, it gets renegotiated here, not this year, but the next year. So if you're in the Big Ten by 25, then that, you have no worries. They have half the power. All that SEC having a monopoly of the playoff and getting to decide unilaterally, or at least influence it to such a crazy degree that Kirk can say this team goes in and that's who they put in. That stuff goes away because Fox is going to be 50-50 right there with them.
Now, in terms of the preference of the universities and which games are selected by these networks, that's a great point that you just brought up. So, yeah, the bad blood between the ACC and the Florida State, and then by connection, the SEC contracted with ESPN. Those two are like that. Mm-hmm. Yes, that is difficult, with people with a lot of money and ego, and there's a lot of territory to divvy up and distribute. For all that to be overcome and just swept under the rug. Wow. Yeah, that would be a large leap.
Look how much more of a value getting Florida is into the Big Ten versus the SEC, who already has Florida and Georgia like right there.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. So from that standpoint, that's where I was headed next. That I've been saying this for years and years and years. So the Big Ten has not been perfect, but has not made very many missteps when it comes to business, just like the SEC.
They went for it. They pushed their chips in 2016, like the SEC did in 08, 04, 04 to 08 era. The ACC just never did. They've just sat back and took it on the chin. And I think it's for those sweetheart deals. I know I keep bringing up Raycom and stuff, but it just sure seems like they're more interested in getting that, but it is what it is. That's why Florida State's trying to get out, and I think Big Ten is the way to go.
But now I would go to a place here. I'm going to go a couple different directions because you've piqued a few things of interest here. One would be, so let's stay on the TV side of things first, and hopefully Chris is connected here. Chris, you with us?
Yeah, sorry about that. I hit a dead zone.
No, you're good. You're good. Appreciate you being here. So let's stay on the TV portion of this, because let's also understand, I haven't run the numbers to a T, but I did a big TV series, rating series, and Ohio State and Michigan, they might be 1 and 2. they're one in something. they're right there at the top of TV ratings and viewership. Then you bring in USC. So, and Penn State certainly not far behind. So there are 4 major draws. I don't know. I don't pretend to know how those negotiations go, because unlike, let's say, the Big Ten Network is obligated to show, they've cut a contract with the conference to basically say, we need to see Ohio State once a year on here. You need to give them up once a year. You need to give up Michigan once a year. So I don't know how that negotiation would go in regards to, okay, Florida State comes into the league, but you're talking about arguably the 2 biggest draws. And I'm not saying that they're exclusively the 2 biggest draws, but it's arguable that Ohio State and Michigan are the 2 biggest TV draws in the nation, and USC is not far behind. Florida State's obviously a huge draw, but how that pecking order would go, because there's a lot of big games to weed through, and Fox, of course, does not have the reach that ESPN has from, hang on just a second, in terms of number of carriers, networks. Fortunately, Florida State, another big advantage in joining the Big Ten would be that the dwindling cable market wouldn't affect them, because Fox is over the air, NBC is over the air, CBS is over the air. So the Big Ten made a brilliant move, basically being like the NFL, saying we're going to be on 3 over-air networks. And in addition to all our games being over the air, they're going to be promoting each other all the time, all day. Saturday, we've got CBS promoting the game on NBC, and we got Fox promoting the game on CBS. And if you noticed, and you guys probably didn't, because you guys are neck deep in Florida State in the ACC, but there were some horrendous Big Ten games that are on NBC and CBS. Rutgers and Northwestern are on CBS, and I'm talking about bad football games, but they're on CBS and NBC in the middle of the afternoon. It's crazy.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about it. You nailed it when you brought the the ability to do it over 3 different networks. That really is awesome, and it's that's why I'm for that side of it for sure. And I know Chris has a take when he got back.
I think what you're going to do is opening in the market as far as the state of Florida goes when you get to the Big Ten. I think that Comcast at that point, and not that they already don't have Fox, but you make it more, relative to the fan bases based off of the NFL on top of it, because the NFL is largely covered by Fox, largely covered by CBS and NBC as well. So you're not only working with who covers the Big Ten, you're also working with who covers the NFL. And the NFL being what it is, the entity that it is, it just allows that much more. Like, my thing is on Sunday night, you've got, I don't know, the Dallas Cowboys and the Vikings playing each other. And in the commercial entity of that, of what they're saying is, next Saturday, Florida State versus Ohio State at the Shoe, blah, blah, blah. That advertisement going across the NFL. And when networks that are watching the Dallas Cowboys, which is the largely vast, biggest brand in all of sports, everyone that's eyeballs are on that are now seeing that Florida State and Ohio State will be playing each other in the Shoe. So it litigates out to me is a larger market than people can anticipate based off of if you need to download Peacock and be able to watch the games that way, whether you need to get the Fox app, whether you need to subscribe to this or that or the other. People are going to spend money to watch big box office games. We all want to see them already. We love when Texas played Alabama, and no one on this is a Texas or Alabama fan, but we love that game. We want to see it because we love the game of college football. Those are 2 of the biggest brands that are out there. So when you start saying stuff across the NFL or across a network that covers this huge, vast amount of eyeballs that see it, that's what matters to me the most, is who you're teaming up with. And in being Fox, CBS, NBC, I mean, what is there to cry about when there's those types of games that you're going to get advertised on, or that type of sport? So I think it's much bigger than people anticipate for a 15 to 30-second commercial of saying that Florida State's going to be playing so and so in the shoe, or they're going to be playing Michigan in the Big House, or Michigan's coming to Doak Campbell Stadium, or Ohio State's coming to Doak Campbell. Or guess what, guys? It's Florida State versus Penn State in a whiteout game. So I mean, to me, once that hits all the ears and waves, it's going to blow beyond, I think, what anybody has seen in college football up to this point. And that maybe I'm a little bit of a homer because I say that, but I don't think so. When you put those two types of brands that have not played each other in X amount of time, and that's now a regional or now a regular home and home game, I think it blows everything out of proportion. And Fox, CBS, and NBC, and whoever else is involved just really know how to stack money. That's how I see it.
So when I brought that up, I kind of answered my own question. I just had to talk it through while I was asking the question because I was thinking about possibly Fox putting Florida State down in a pecking order of priorities, as ESPN might if Florida State joined the SEC, and making Ohio State, Michigan, USC the priorities over Florida State. But there's NBC, there's CBS. And again, this hit me as soon as this Big Ten deal was signed, in regards to promotion, that this is brilliant. Fox has a Big Ten game on at noon, and they're telling us that CBS has a Big Ten game on at 3:30. And when CBS has the 3:30 game on, they're running the highlights in the pregame and the halftime of the Big Ten game that was on Fox, and then telling you that the NBC game on tonight, primetime, is a Big Ten game. And then, and it just...
Yeah, and that's absolutely right there with it. What I was talking about with the ACC network and Raycom and that whole nightmare of how these ACC has broadcast games and all this time. It's a whole new era of like cord cutters and people streaming. Chris brought it up with the Peacock network. There's all kind of people that just have like YouTube TV. That's how they watch their TV, et cetera, et cetera. And Fox is doing what it has to. Like, you've seen them come out with the new graphics this year. They upgraded their whole, layout of how they broadcast games, more flashy graphics like these kids and everybody wants to watch, brought it into the future of what it is. And we haven't seen Florida State with somebody behind them, with the machine behind them, really pushing them. Like, people don't realize what is possible. We haven't seen, like, you talk about Michigan and Ohio State being pretty much number one and number two, Ohio State or USC not far behind, and then Florida State at 6 or 7 or whatever it is. Who knows what it could jump up to once they get in there. And even if whatever they favor USC or Michigan, I mean, that's 2 games. I mean, they're playing them two times a year. So those are going to be mega games regardless. And I think it just rising tides rise all boats, so to speak. And the biggest jump for Florida State would be, Big Ten and that TV market, like you said, carrying it over 3 networks. I mean, yeah, that's going to be nuts. It'd be awesome. You don't have a CW. You don't have, okay, well, you're not going to be on ABC this time. You're on CW or the ACC network. You're not on Fox. You're not the big noon kickoff, but you're the 7 o'clock game on NBC. So yeah, that would be freaking great.
Yeah, the worst Florida State's going to do is they're going to play their Jacksonville State game on the Big Ten network. And that even has distribution that's now it might be pushing ESPN now. I know FS1 has, this shocked me when I found this, because somebody was making fun of a game going to FS1. There was like a Nebraska-Wisconsin game, or Nebraska and Rutgers, or somebody was playing on FS1, and somebody was saying nobody can watch that or something. And I looked it up, and I couldn't believe that ESPN's gone from 102 or 3 million in distribution in terms of TV homes in the last 5 years to 71. And FS1 is up to 74 million. So there's more people that can get FS1 games than ESPN games at this point.
It's changing. It's changing fast. I mean, you don't lay off all those thousands and thousands and thousands of people without it's starting to show up. No sympathy for me. That gets none.
None at all. But I've got about 2 to 3 minutes before I have to jump off here. So if y'all got anything that I need to say, let me know. I apologize that I got to jump off, but I got to go. I got some more stuff I got to cover, so I apologize for that. But It is
No,
what it is.
Chris, we appreciate everything we can get out of you. So for the next 2 or 3 minutes, you can let us know, where do you think the next step is here?
I personally think that obviously because of the holiday situation that's coming up, you're going to hear a huge update come the end or near the end of January from the Board of Trustees when they have that meeting. There'll be some obvious, situations that have popped up legality-wise against the ACC against Florida State, however you want to look at it. I think that you'll start learning more in a big way about this. Obviously, there will be rumors all over the place, but wait until the Board of Trustees come out and say their piece about mid to late January, and then we'll decipher, exactly what it feels like this is moving, what direction, and who's winning because of what direction it's moving in. So all I can tell Florida State fans is this is what you wanted to see. Now let it cook a little bit. It's time to put it in the oven, let it bake, and then you'll bring out your first set of rolls about mid to late January, and then we'll be able to conversate on exactly what it means and where we are in the process of being able to say what we're doing.
Awesome, Chris. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, Mark, y'all have a good one. Go Noles.
Thanks, Chris. Awesome stuff. Let's go to this comment. Then I've got another point to make about something you alluded to, George, that deserves a little bit more time. Taylor, thank you so much for the contribution. There are members of the SEC who will fight FSU joining the SEC. I think we know who that would be. RE being turned down in the past, in the Bobby Bowden era.
Yeah. Florida and Georgia wants no parts of Florida State in the SEC. And there's no doubt about that.
So what you alluded to before, George, is something that when I was talking about the Big Ten not being perfect, but being pretty close to it in regards to how they've run a business for the last 10 or 15 years, especially and historically, but especially they've been kind of an old stodgy conference traditionally and have held on to traditions. And they've done a nice job of doing that in like ritualistic kind of ways, but kind of expediting the new brand and going forward and pushing forward into a new age of media and all that. So they've done a great job. But the one thing they can't do anything about, they check all the boxes. They got the biggest brands, they got this, all down the line, major TV markets, etc. They don't have enough players. There's not enough players in the Midwest, not enough good football players. And so I've been saying forever, go to Florida. Texas and Florida have the best football players and the most best football players of any two states. And certainly getting to Southern California has helped tremendously because that's like the third, along with Georgia, destination.
Quarterback central.
But Florida and Texas are at the top. And to get a Florida team and maybe somebody to pair with them, whether that's Clemson, whether that's Miami, would just be phenomenal for the conference.
Absolutely. No doubt. I mean, and for the team, be it Florida State or Miami or whoever, I mean, you get to be, just that hot chick. You get to be the Florida team. You get to be the Southeastern team inside of the Big Ten. So you could either do that, or you could go to the SEC and just be another team in the SEC. And along with, it's pretty funny because Bobby wanted to coach for Bama, and then they didn't want him, and then they reached out, and then he didn't want them. And it's the same thing with the ACC, or the SEC. Florida State wanted to join the SEC. They didn't want him. And the SEC came calling. Bobby said, no, we're good. We're going to win these titles right here. So it's funny how that works over time. And at the time when Bobby picked the ACC, they were getting, some of the top money, at that time. But at this point in time, yeah, there's so many positives, but adding that Florida market and being that Florida team in the Big Ten would absolutely be huge. There's no doubt about it. Because
Chris hit on this, even though Ohio State, Michigan was the highest rated game, as it typically is every year, this year by a zillion viewers. Number 2, I think, was Ohio State, Penn State. I'd have to go through it anyway. But the newness, and those games are obviously drawing zillions of people, but the newness of Ohio State
Yes.
going to Doak Campbell State, Florida State's going to the big, like all those things that he just talked about. Florida State going to USC, like the newness of that. Oh,
You get bowl season. It's like a whole entire season of bowl
yes, they're
games,
like New
basically
Year's
what you
Six
get.
games.
Geez,
Yes,
you're at the Rose Bowl and then over to the Shoe and then you're back to home to play Michigan. Like, man, and they add the Washington they'll add Washington, Oregon. So you got Oregon coming into Doak with those crazy away uniforms. And then you go to get to play over there, the home of Nike. So there's just so many things into it. The one kind of con or like the thing that people always harp on the Big Ten is that you got Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State, and the one side and the other side is meh. It's people want to talk crap about it.
there's
Well,
not going to be
bringing
enough
in
pride
FSU
anymore.
and Washington and Oregon and all these teams completely like you can't even say that anymore. It completely well rounds it, and yeah, I don't know how they're going to work the schedule, but I would hope that you could get at least one of Ohio State, Michigan to be one of the teams that Florida State would play year in and year out. That would be really cool.
Of course, Florida State has a much, much greater talent base and so forth, but beware of those trips to Iowa and Wisconsin. Those are tricky.
You just hit on a big time point. Okay. It's going to be fun playing that Iowa defensive struggle once a year. Adam Fuller, Florida State, we'll get down like that. But guess what? We're going to be in front of those Iowa offensive linemen every year. So yeah, you talk about, well, that's going to help maybe some of these Big Ten teams get some of that Florida talent to come their way instead of the SEC. Same thing. Maybe we can get, in front of some of these linebackers and these offensive linemen out of, traditional Big Ten country and get those coming to Tallahassee more often because, hey, their whole family's going to be able to come see them just as much as if they went, to Wisconsin or Ohio State or anywhere else.
Mike Ford, Michigan fan, appreciate you being here. Mike's one of our stalwarts here at the Voice of College Football. And Mike, I correct you only because I respect you. So I'm going to do it right here. And Mike, I wish it was 1980 again, but it's not. So when you say Texas and Florida do lead the nation in high school talent, yes, they do. So Texas and Florida, it's like this. And there's like, I look at this all the time, 60 roughly 4 and 5 stars in both of those states. California used to be that good. They're not anymore. They're still really good. Georgia's caught up and maybe surpassed California.
Yeah.
Ohio, I am proud of the Buckeye State. Plays great football. It's still like a top 7 or 8 state, but it's way behind those.
It does enough where it can feed Ohio State the majority of that, but not like a Florida where you're feeding half the country. Like everybody's got talent off of Florida on their rosters, like everybody.
So I'm sorry, Mike. I wish that statement was true. They're not right behind anymore. That's like a 1990s statement. People have moved west and they've moved south, and Ohio still plays really good football, but it's not Texas or Florida. It's not even.
And when you do the per capita, I mean, Florida really is. I mean, there is no comparison because, like you said, it's pretty even with Texas. And what you could fit 3 Floridas in Texas. I'm not sure what the exact population numbers are.
Population is though. Obviously,
I'm not sure. It's not the same disparity, but I think they still have more.
Yeah, and from the land, you could throw 3 of almost every state into Texas. Actually, Louisiana, from a per capita standpoint, is crazy in terms of NFL talent.
They got wide receivers out the wazoo, man.
Yeah.
I mean, stud wide receivers year in, year out. It's funny how that stereotype, but it plays out. Like you get these quarterbacks out of California, these linemen in the Midwest. Louisiana has the wide receivers. FSU has the defensive backs. It's like it is pretty funny, but it's true. I don't know how that works, but
George, I know you've been on this all day, as Chris has. So what's going on there at Renegade Report?
Absolutely. Yeah. Me and Jim were just live from 2 to 4 on our channel. We did a show getting down and dirty. We covered it all. We talked about it for 2 hours, answered a ton of questions, got into all the nooks and crannies and kind of what's coming up next. So definitely go check that out. And we'll be live again Sunday. Usually we go live around noon on Sundays. We did a cool show with Zach Smith this past Sunday. Go check that out. Go check out our show with Kadarian Jones. We did one with him talking about, really inside the Mike Norvell, Josh Storms, Adam Fuller program. So just all kind of stuff, man. We're doing a ton of content. I think we did 5 podcasts this week because, we had the signing day special and just all the news breaking. So just keeping the content flowing.
Awesome. Appreciate that. You can catch George after I keep losing track of which bowl is which. It's the Orange Bowl against Georgia. So Georgia, Florida State, the Orange Bowl. Are they playing on the 30th?
I want to say it's the 31st, but don't get me to lie. I can
Whatever
look
it
it
is.
up real quick.
Whatever. It's like Friday or Saturday night, whatever it is, leading into New Year. So George is going to do the post game as he always does. We appreciate George knocking out the post game for us here at the Voice of College Football. And I wanted to ask you about anything in regards to any leftover storylines or anything from National Signing Day. Is there anything else out there that is in the works, or any rumblings of anything possibly happening?
It's not high school. I think high school is pretty sewed up. I don't know if a lot of people caught Denos White committed late in the day, but he's the number 3 defensive lineman in North Carolina. So that was a nice little pickup to end National Signing Day kind of after all the main news dropped. But yeah, that's the big news. The big story is DJU and Cam Ward. Who's it going to be? Is DJU really just waiting this long to see if Cam Ward's going to go? Like, it's really an unprecedented situation. But Chris kind of threw a comment in my show, kind of hinting towards maybe a Christmas decision. Maybe we know something by then. So we'll see. But that's the biggest thing. Who's it going to be, DJU or Cam Ward, to be quarterback? Florida State also did get a big-time commitment, their first big 2025 commitment since early signing day, from the number 18 overall player, Solomon Thomas, today. So the number 3 player in Florida, number 1 interior O-lineman in the nation.
How depleted is this team going to be for the Orange Bowl?
It's going to be tough, but a lot of people acted like Georgia wasn't going to lose anybody, and it was just going to be an absolute thrashing. Look, we're going to be down 20, 25 guys, but so is Georgia. Carson Beck is supposed to be playing. The issue here is that, Georgia's going to have a little bit better depth. They've done so much better in high school recruiting.
Than everyone.
I feel like 3 quarters, this game is going to be close. I don't think there's no way in heck Florida State doesn't come in fired up. I think Fuller's going to have a great game plan on defense. Mike Norvell is going to scheme something up to score some plays. But kind of what Florida State has done to everybody all year in the fourth quarter, there's a chance it could be reversed, versus this Georgia team when you are down so many people, and they have a little bit better. Like if Florida State and Georgia are both going to be playing true freshmen and, redshirt freshmen out there, that's advantage Georgia. So that's kind of the issue.
Is there concern that Tate Rodemaker, who I believe was a 4-star coming out of high school, that if they jump over him with another transfer, that he could say goodbye?
Of all people in the world to transfer, Tate Rodemaker is not the top of that list, but far be it for me to say, going into his senior year, if the writing is on the wall, he's not going to start and Brock Glenn passes him up. So he's not even going to be the backup. Yeah, I think at that point you may see him transfer, but I could also see him, sticking around. It would not surprise me one bit for him to stick around the whole time. But yeah, I think more so than somebody coming in to beat him out, be it a Cam Ward or a DJU, I think if Brock Glenn would pass him up for that backup, because you're still one play away, and I think he understands that, and I think he would be willing to accept that role to be the backup on a championship team. But I don't know if he'd be willing to be the 3rd string guy. So I guess that would be the idea.
George, thanks for giving so much time up for us today. Appreciate you answering the call. And again, everybody, Renegade Report. Where do we stand in the subs?
We are at, when we started the show, we were at, I think, 1,200. Let's see.
You're up to 1,200.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, not 1,200. Hold on. I lied. It wasn't 1,200. Yes. 1,213.
Okay.
1,213 subs. So y'all
picked up a lot.
Keep them coming. We really appreciate it. Yeah, it's been The past month
Nice.
has been wild. Absolutely. Yes, sir. It has
Okay.
been a lot of fun. We've
Okay.
picked up
Well,
like 700 the last month, so.
okay. Excellent. Well, we certainly want to push more subs your way, but I'm glad that we got you past. Not that I had anything to do with it, but that we all got you past
Yes, all
the 1,000
encompassing.
mark.
Absolutely. Y'all
Nice.
have it's been a great opportunity, and man, all those, post-game shows, those are huge and a great experience. So I'm just happy we can start to, put a better product together, as we go forward for the Voice of College Football when we get to do this stuff.
Absolutely. Appreciate you, George.
Absolutely.
You have a great day. And if I don't get to talk to you, Merry Christmas.
Yes, sir. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to everybody out there, the Voice of College Football family, to everybody, Knoll Nation, of course, man. And a Happy New Year as well.
All right, George. Thanks, man.
See you guys later. Thank you, Mark.
Good night. All right. Georgitis. I don't know where I found him. I don't know how we connected. It's hard for me to keep track of all these people in regards to where these relationships started, but I sure am glad that we got together. He does a tremendous job with his Florida State information. Chris Frazier joined us again, and Chris is running around like a madman as well on all these shows in his own platform there at Spear Addicts, and he joins us as much as he possibly can. And again, we do this every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Eastern time with George, with Chris, and with James Coleman, who played at Florida State from 2002 to 05. And so I cannot ask for any better analysts on Florida State football. That's all there is to it. All right, folks, we're going to comb through the comments, and we've got a Georgia Tech UCF game tonight that I'm hoping is just a little bit better than that South Florida Syracuse game last night. Full disclosure here, I will be posting my predictions, but I'm throwing darts, and I don't know if you want to take any stock in my predictions. Now, I never say that because I will ride with my bowl predictions. I went through my bowl prediction record. I'm going to post that just to make me, gain back a little confidence. I'm going to post my bowl record historically. We'll do that to the community channel there on the community page and post my bowl record, which I believe last year was 23-13. But man, I'm off to a rough start. And I had no idea that Syracuse did not have a quarterback. Not that they wouldn't have won or lost anyway, because they got completely trucked. Like, I had that game on. I was thinking, I'm going to watch a college football game. I had a ton of work to do, but I thought, I am watching this game. Okay, we're 15 minutes in. I'm not watching this game anymore. It's horrible. Like, Syracuse couldn't run an offensive play. Syracuse not having its head coach, not having, of course, Dino Babers fired, and also not having its quarterback and not having its backup quarterback. I don't even think they had their third string quarterback. They had a wide receiver wearing number 89 playing at quarterback last night, and they were playing one of the worst defenses in college football. That's not an exaggeration. South Florida was number 131 in total defense. Their defense was horrendous. So for Syracuse to get shut out as a 3-point favorite as an ACC team taking on an American Conference team, I'm not making excuses for Syracuse, but four-string quarterback, I don't know what are the other opt-out situations were involved there. And I just think South Florida, they've been down for so long, and they've just been a horrendous football program that had a nice season for them at 6-6. And I at least did this before I made my prediction. I went through, I knew Syracuse's results basically on the top of my head. I went to South Florida and I thought, yeah, their defense is as bad as I thought it was. They're giving up like 59 points to Memphis and 55 to this team and 50 to that team. And I thought, even if Syracuse has opt-outs, they should be able to win this game, right? This defense they're playing tonight is one of the worst defenses in the country. Nope, 45-zip. So just because I am contractually obligated to deliver my predictions, I will, but do not take them to the bank. I will let you know when you can again take them to the bank. We did have a nice season here at the Voice of College Football. I have posted here and on Twitter, if you're into this kind of thing, I am not advocating it. I am not encouraging anyone to get out there and spend part of your hard-earned money. However, you'd be up like $4,000 on my picks, $100 per this season. But then again, it's bowl season, so you missed out. So I will tell you when they count again. It's probably going to be about another week before we get a hold of some teams that I can properly evaluate, or at least take more than 8 seconds to evaluate. All right. We do appreciate everyone here at the Voice of College Football. Thank you for the super chat coming in from Nick. At least Mike Norvell doesn't have a fake beard like Ryan Day. Has anybody pulled Ryan Day's beard? Have you tested this out, Nick? The fake beard. Have you tested that out? Yeah, if that's the worst we can say for an individual, let's say Ryan Day does have a fake beard, that he somehow, for some reason, wanted to maybe up his game as a basically wanted to up his game for a role as a youthful Kris Kringle. You know, if you see the claymation Santa Claus is coming to town, you know that Kris Kringle had the red hair, the red beard, and until he became an aged man, that's who he was. So maybe Ryan Day's going for that look, the Kris Kringle look pre-geriatric stage. But let's say he has gone that route. Is this the worst thing that you can say about the man? Is this like a crime? We have lawlessness and freaks out there in public all over the place doing horrific things. Every time I open up social media and I see what's going on in this country, I'm like, this country is in the worst shape it's been in pretty much in its history, at least in the last 150 years. And this is, I would say, if this is the worst this man's doing, is that he's got a fake beard. I don't know what fake beards are made out of, Nick. You'll have to let me know. What did they make fake beards out of? But man, that would take a lot of maintenance to put that thing on every day, I would think, or maintain it in that fashion. So yeah, again, if that would be the worst thing that somebody could say about me, Ryan Day must be an exceptional person, exceptional individual. So thank you for the comparison on Mike Norvell and Ryan Day. Mike Norvell would like to have Ryan Day's record. I know that, but he's working on it. Jim Harbaugh would like to have Ryan Day's record. Truth be known. He would add about 10% onto his winning percentage. All right, everyone. We do appreciate you being here. Conundrum letting us know that FSU is acting lawlessly. Well, in their case, we're talking about guidelines and rules and contracts. We're not talking about anything serious. This is college football. It's fun. It is fun. I do have an idea for content as soon as we hit the off season, and I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I do. So we will unveil that in regards to some of the arguments that we have on here, which are good arguments. Talking this being a good thing, debate. That's why we're here. Best discussion, debate, and analysis, thanks to you, is that we will tap into some of these arguments once we get to the off season. And I'm going to allow you folks to drive the debate and the argument. You will be able to drive the debate and the argument. You will set up the parameters. You will set up the framework. And I will merely deliver the facts. All right. Wet blanket. I was not referring to, let's see, 150 years ago. The Great Depression was like 90 years ago. I was referring to another event. And yes, the Great Depression had nothing to do with morals. But But we will not take it the historical route tonight. We will not do that. Look at this. Adam is here in the chat. And before I respond to Adam's comment here, or just the fact that Adam is here, I am going to drop the link in the chat in case anyone wants to call, talk some college football. We do not have to talk about Florida State. We can talk about transfer portal, bowl games, National Signing Day. I've released these videos, folks. When it comes to National Signing Day, Voice of College Football, I'm not a recruiting guy, but I have recruiting sources. So by extension, we cover recruiting aside from some of these national services that obviously have the corporate structure behind them. Let's understand that when you watch us here at the Voice of College Football, it is me, and it's a whole lot of help from a lot of great people, but it's basically me versus corporations that drive and are able to polish up and provide information and producers and all that other stuff, research for some of your other favorite destinations. But we've got National Signing Day reports, and I still have a few to edit and deliver. National Signing Day reports, folks, from Notre Dame, Miami, Florida State, Clemson, Wake Forest, Ohio State, Michigan State, Iowa, Purdue, Illinois, Minnesota, Oregon, Utah, Virginia, LSU, Ole Miss, Georgia, and probably about 5 or 6 that I forgot about. There you go. Check out the National Signing Day reports that we're posting right here. And we've got an SEC channel. It's in the description section. If you go to the description section of this video, we've got a link to the SEC channel. Check it out. Okay. We've got Adam, the sports guy. I appreciate Adam because even though there's a number of comments that he makes that I don't agree with, he is commenting like a madman. Jackson, Jackson, Jackson. Thank you. Jackson's the man. Thank you, Jackson, for posting the SEC channel link where we have recently posted National Signing Day reports, Ole Miss, LSU in particular, South Carolina. But Jackson, thank you so much for that. This guy Jackson, when it comes to like loyalty, support, and a just tremendous college football fan, Jackson Johnson is a gold standard guy. All right, Adam. I don't think Adam can join us on a regular basis during the live streams, but he watches a ton of videos and makes so many comments. Adam, we always appreciate you, sir. I hope Florida State knows they're not getting out within the next year. And I believe that they understand that. D-Rock Irish breaking some news for us as well. Let's get into that because we did have a really good conversation with Nick Shepkowski from Irish Wire. But at that point, that was before the offensive coordinator, Mike Denbrock of LSU, was announced. Now, let's see if there's anything here that we can find out. I am not in a position, even though I watched a ton of Notre Dame football this year, to really assess the performance of Jared Parker and his 1 year as offensive coordinator. And I know that most Notre Dame fans were not pleased with that hire, that elevation, I should say, as offensive line coach promoted to offensive coordinator. And Notre Dame's offense pretty much this year looked like Notre Dame's offense has looked like under Brian Kelly. Efficient, strong running game, capable passing game, use of the tight end, all of that. Not explosive enough, though. Not explosive enough. Now we'll see what Mike Denbrock has. And Mike Denbrock has a pretty successful resume. Let's see if there's anything in here that we're going to find out about Mike Denbrock that we don't already know. So he comes to Notre Dame by way of LSU. Accepted the coordinator job, according to sources. He spent the past 2 years at LSU under Brian Kelly, who came to LSU after 12 seasons leading Notre Dame, of course. Denbrock was a finalist for the Broyles Award given to the nation's top assistant. Okay, his offense led FBS play in points per game, 46.4, yards per game, 547, and of course, Jaden Daniels won the Heisman Trophy. Now, how much of that had to do with Denbrock versus Daniels and those receivers? I'm going to go Daniels and those receivers and an excellent LSU offensive line, by the way. Tremendous offensive line that was growing up in 2022 and was one of the younger offensive lines in college football and really stepped up this year. And with those receivers, Brian Thomas, Malik Neighbors, those guys, whoo, great offense. Denbrock is 59, replaces Jared Parker, recently became the head coach at Troy. Marcus Freeman's third offensive coordinator in as many years, as Tommy Rees oversaw the offense in 22. Not good for the quarterbacks, although they're going to have a new quarterback in a new system anyway, of course, with Riley Leonard. Denbrock worked under Kelly at Notre Dame from 2010 to 16, serving as the team's offensive coordinator in 14. Wide receivers coach, worked alongside Marcus Freeman at Cincinnati as the team's offensive coordinator under coach Luke Fickell. I missed on that one. Do not remember Mike Denbrock being at Cincinnati for those couple seasons. Texas A&M wanted him, so that's a good sign. Yeah, he's a really good coach. Very good coach. Oh, look at Joe Long. We will get to the super chat. Thank you so much for that in just a second. Joe Long says, Mark, Ohio State was reliant on the refs to beat Notre Dame this year. Were they really? Morrison absolutely shut down Marvin Harrison, and the Big Ten refs let his holding non-called on Travion Henderson's 70-yard run. Notre Dame beat Ohio State, and the refs decided. Yes. You know what else, Joe? Go into the record books over the past, pick your time frame, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years, and all those games that Ohio State's won that Notre Dame has not won, meaning those 90% wins from Ohio State, more like 85 to 88% wins from Ohio State, and more like 65% wins for Notre Dame. Those were all officiated incorrectly as well. Those were all referee-aided wins as well. You know the 18 major bowl wins that Ohio State has since Notre Dame last won a major bowl game? Those were all referee-aided as well. It's been a complete conspiracy against all of college football in favor of Ohio State and against Notre Dame. So there's been two conspiracies going on here. It's been going on for 20, 25 years. So the officiating has had to be then taught to the next generation of officials to make sure suppress Notre Dame, bad calls against the Irish, and prop up Ohio State to go 11-1 every year. You are correct, Joe. Absolutely. You have basically laid out the excuse for all of Notre Dame's failures over the last 25 years. Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Joe, give me a call sometime. You can do it today. Please give me a call right now. Give me a call right now, Joe. Get on the horn, grab that link, bam, give me a call. Let's talk about it right now. In the meantime, we will check out the super chat. We've got right here Jim R. Topic suggestion. Very nice. Thank you so much for that, Jim. Winners/losers in the transfer portal. Merry Christmas, Mark. And chatsters. thanks for the great shows this season. Jim, thank you so much for the contribution. That is certainly a topic that we have addressed in the past. And that is a good suggestion. I will tell you that if I don't get that done this weekend, that I will certainly do that. Let's do that at the end of the transfer portal cycle, which should be in about 2 weeks. I'm not going to look it up. I know it's within roughly 2 weeks from now. Jim, thank you for the suggestion and for the request there. We will jump on that. We absolutely will do that. Thank you for that. All right. Look at this. We got Joe here. Joe's jumping on board with us. Joe, how you doing?
Good. Let me mute.
Hello?
Okay, I'm trying to get this to work right.
No, we can hear you fine.
I
You're
know
good.
I'm getting the reverb, but that's all right. Okay, what do you want to yell at me for? I given my opinion, and that's what it is, you know?
Okay. So is there any particular reason, first of all, that you're bringing up a game from 3 months ago today?
Well, you talked about Notre Dame, and I think you were alluding to their situation and their quarterback, and I agree with you. Always Irish, I made a comment about quarterbacks, and these Notre Dame has had 3 one-and-dones, for the last 4 years, I think, with Jack Cohn and then Hartman, and now we're going to have Riley Leonard. I made the point of when you talk about guys that are like Jaden Daniels at LSU and Bo Nix going over to Oregon, those guys didn't do much in their first year, but in their second year, they were up for the Heisman. Now, Notre Dame is going on this one-and-done kick, and one-and-dones just don't work at the quarterback position. There's too many. They need to get to know the campus. They need to get to know their teammates. They need to get the wide receivers. They need to know the styles and chemistry of the receivers. It's just a lot to ask for when you get a quarterback to come in for 1 year. And so on that point, I agree with you. On the other point about Notre Dame, that's why I brought up the game. Like, you made it seem so blasé that Notre Dame isn't in Ohio State's class. But, in this last game they played, and in that first game, I'll give another excuse, Buckner making his first start at the shoe. But in this last game, it was pretty darn even. And I would say the lion's share of dominance went to Notre Dame, but OSU got a 3rd and 19 down to the 1 and then got a 1 yard. It was just so lucky to me. And earlier in that game,
that 3rd and 19 conversion was lucky.
I would say so. I mean, he threw it in between 3 guys.
Yeah, knock it down.
It was a good pass, and I gave him credit for that.
Well, that's not luck.
Well, it was 3rd and 19 with like 2 seconds left, or 5 seconds left. What are you going to do?
Okay.
That's pretty lucky to me.
Why is it lucky?
Because with that much time left,
because
and
Notre Dame didn't defend the play, and he made a perfect throw, and the receiver made a good move on the DB to get open, and it was timed perfectly. That's luck.
Yeah, well, it was pretty lucky in the big picture of things, because Notre Dame was on that drive bringing them back and back and back to a 3rd and 19, and then all of a sudden they completed that. It's like, yeah, are you kidding me? So. Either way, they won by Ohio State won by 3 points, But when you look at that call, when Marvin Harrison, Travion Henderson was running for that 70-yard touchdown, Marvin Harrison was totally holding, and it was right in front of their faces, and they didn't call it. That touchdown should not have counted.
Okay. I would have to go back and watch the play. I remember the touchdown run. I don't remember the hold.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't expect you to.
Okay. Ohio State could have won a playoff game and won the national championship last year if the officials would have properly, in some people's eyes, called a targeting. Okay. So Ohio State got possibly ripped off there. I don't
And
cry
I can,
about it. I
you know,
think
I don't.
that they should have won the game, but they didn't. Georgia won fair and square. It was a bang bang call. You know, as a football fan, that
I am
holding can be called
on
all
every
over the
play.
place,
Absolutely.
pretty much.
Pretty much for the offensive line, but not so much for the outside of the front seven. The tight ends you can get called, but receivers and cornerbacks and all that, that's they pretty much allow a lot, and that's what
Okay.
they did there. But it's my problem with the Big Ten refereeing. I mean, I saw it a lot through all these years, and you won't want to hear that because you're in the Big Ten, and those refs, they're
I'm
know
not
where
in
their
the Big
bread.
Ten.
Well, they know where their bread is buttered. Same thing with the Pac-12. Most conferences are doing that. I mean, Notre Dame's game, I think, with Louisville this year, they didn't get one penalty called on. Louisville didn't commit one penalty, and that hadn't happened for them since the 1950s. So, like Notre Dame not being in a conference definitely doesn't get a lot of love from refs. You got to see that.
So if I look this up, Joe,
Yeah.
I would find that Notre Dame gets called for more penalties than their opponents every year. That's what
No.
you're telling me.
No, that's not what I'm saying. And I don't know. I doubt if that's true. I mean, I just don't believe that's true.
Well, then why are we picking and choosing certain games? Let's start over here, Joe, because you've gone down a lot of different paths.
Okay.
The first thing was I was making an assessment about Notre Dame's offense, Mike Denbrook's career, and it was a very general assessment. I wasn't breaking down individual players, but I was making a very general assessment of
Yeah,
Notre
it was
Dame's
blasé, as I said.
I'm sorry, what's that?
I said it was blasé, your comment, as I said. It was like offhanded, kind of like, yeah, Notre Dame's quarterback. And I agree with most of it because I don't like what they're doing.
I wasn't being critical.
No, I said blasé.
I was not being critical of Notre Dame's offense. I was saying that it lacked some explosiveness, and that's been the biggest issue under Brian Kelly and now Marcus Freeman.
Yeah, with their receivers.
Yeah.
The running backs are good.
Yes, absolutely. Notre Dame has had one of the 3 or 4 best offensive lines in college football for close to a decade.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think they're soft. I
was about to say that I wasn't as impressed with this offensive line against the likes of Ohio State and especially that Louisville game. So I wouldn't necessarily have said this about this offensive line. And I was a bit surprised that I can't think of his first name. Is it John Alt?
Joe
Alt. That he was evaluated as highly as he was. I know that he came into this season with a tremendous reputation, but he had some misses in that Louisville game in particular.
Yeah. Well, he allowed 1 sack all year is what they credited him.
Okay. Yeah, far be it for me to go against people that are evaluating every snap. So I'm not saying. I watched Notre Dame play the big games. I probably saw him play 7 games this year. And
I'm not salty.
I saw a Notre Dame offense that was pretty much indicative of what it typically is.
I agree.
Estime is a tremendous running back. I would not want to get in the guy's way in the secondary, that's for sure. And a really good offensive line, maybe not to Notre Dame's vintage standard, but I don't want to say, I'll say marginal receiver play. And I was very slightly disappointed with Sam Hartman. I was a big Sam Hartman fan going into last season, but he played in a different offense. He was used to throwing the ball 45 times a game and really the offense being centered around him. And that wasn't the case, but maybe I was expecting too much because he's not a elite quarterback. He's
not by any means
good college quarterback.
He had great receivers when he was at Wake Forest.
Yes.
Much better than Notre Dame's.
And I'm sure he played a tougher schedule than he ever played at Wake Forest.
You know what he did also, I noticed in his year at Notre Dame? his throws mostly came off of his back foot and almost looked like everyone was in desperation. Like he didn't like, step into his throws. And I don't know if that was a result of the constant pressure, because we had a center, Zeke Correll, who was horrible. And most of the pressure that got to him was coming right up the middle, because they had two rookie guards, and a center that's useless. So, I mean, maybe I can't blame him that much, but it seemed to me like his throws were always off his back foot, or he just struggled, trying to make a play.
Joe, I seem to like your team better than you do.
Possibly.
Well, I'm glad that you called. And just to comb through
I
some
like
of
your
the-
show, Mark.
Well, I
I do.
appreciate it. And,
Yeah,
and
I
thanks
do.
for being here. And I don't pretend to be unbiased. I pretend or say that for sure that I do everything I possibly can to be unbiased. But I just
You're
think
pretty
that
good
that's
at it. I'll
impossible.
give you that.
So
But I
do
know
my
where your
best.
allegiance lies. You're good at it, though. You're
But-
pretty good at being unbiased, having a show.
But do you realize when most people, until they determine where my allegiance lies, they have no idea?
Yeah. I was like that actually at first. When I first called it, I didn't know who you were with. I just figured you're a total college football fan, and you are. But I found out that it is OSU, and I found out because of the Michigan people.
Well, yeah, they kind of drag it out of me.
Yeah.
They get the best of me. And I got to
know.
say, Joe, that Notre Dame fans got the best of me this year, because this is what I got tired of hearing leading up to this game. And so we're talking about, like you said, the Tyler Buckner game, the 21-10 game in Columbus. So there was a lot of time, a lot of build up to the next game. And I had no issue with any Notre Dame fan who told me or commented in the chat that they were confident that Notre Dame was going to win the game. I had absolutely no issue with that. I didn't think that was ridiculous. The teams were very evenly matched, at least on that night. They certainly were. They played a great game down to the wire. Either team could have won. Notre Dame may have outplayed Ohio State. I don't know. I'd have to go back and watch the game. But I certainly didn't pound my fist and say, well, Ohio State proved that they're so much better than Notre Dame or anything like that. No, this was a dead even game. But these are the two things that irked me about Notre Dame fans, and not every Notre Dame fan, but many of them leading into that game for months and months and months. Number one, how many of these Notre Dame fans told me, I guarantee Notre Dame's going to win? Now, what kind of ridiculous statement is that? Guaranteeing.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, like I wouldn't guarantee that Ohio State would win that game. Like, what does that even mean? What are the ramifications of you guaranteeing that Notre Dame's going to win? Do we get to chop off a finger if they don't? Like, what? Like, I don't even get that comment. And then the other one was for those people that stated over and over in different ways that Notre Dame had more success and a better program than Ohio State. And that's
Well, they're talking out of their ass, basically.
okay. Well, thank you,
can't.
Joe. I
There's
appreciate
no way
that.
that's true.
So, okay, we don't have to take that. And I even was fair enough to say, I can't say that Notre Dame may overtake Ohio State this year and have a better program right this second. Nobody's played a game this year, but recent history isn't debatable. Okay. Thank you, Joe. I appreciate you at least relenting to that. And I'm not here to rub that in anybody's face. Just that's what we do here. We discuss and all of that. And when that comes up, I'm just like, what are we debating here?
Yeah. No, you wanted me to call, so I called. I mean,
I appreciate you calling. I'm glad that you called. It would be like me, let's say for the last 15 years, I would debate Ohio State's program against any except Alabama.
Right.
I can't argue that they're better than Alabama the last 15 years. They're not. So I wouldn't argue it. I would try to. I could manipulate a little bit, some numbers, and bring up some things that might bring some things to light, but I can't argue that. Alabama's had the best program in college football for the last 15 years.
Yeah.
It's
I would
not
agree with that.
debatable.
And I would agree Ohio State's probably like right there And, you know, if they play every year, they probably in the last 15 years, if they were to play for a championship against each other every year, it'd probably be like Alabama winning, you know, 9 and Ohio State winning 6, I would say. You know, like because Alabama really was that much better, I think.
That's fair.
Okay, buddy.
That is fair, Joe. I appreciate you calling. Merry Christmas, and I hope you, enjoy the holidays.
Thank you very much, and Merry Christmas to all you guys. I'm a fan of this show, and you know, I call things as I see them. So, you know, when you see things that I say in the comment section and you want me to call in, I'll talk to you about it.
Awesome.
But Merry Christmas to all those guys there.
Thank you.
All right, bud.
Oh, this is the way this is supposed to work right there. Thank you, Joe, for calling in. I know you don't typically call in. I think that's the first time. I think that is exactly what doesn't happen when I'm on Twitter and I either present a topic and then people don't like the way I presented it. And then they start to throw out all these erroneous facts that are misinformation. They're incorrect. And then I challenge them to come on the show. And I'm going to be kind. I'm going to try not to call you a moron. I'm going to try not to call you an idiot. I did take a early New Year's resolution not to do that. So I will do my best not to do that, because I did have a caller on here about a week ago, and I went on a bit of a rampage at the end of the call, and those terms were thrown out repeatedly at them. So I will do my best to withhold those terms. But that's the way this is supposed to work. I have never had anybody on Twitter that I have asked politely to come on the show and let's discuss it, take me up on it. And they don't even respond. Like, it could be one of these back and forths 15 times. And then as soon as I say, we're not getting anywhere here as keyboard warriors discussing this back and forth, call the show. Silence. They're gone. That's how it works. All right. South Florida 45, Syracuse nothing. That has brought my bowl prediction record to a sterling 2-5. I can't pick these bowl games this year, and my bowl record is phenomenal. Well, it's not phenomenal. That's an overstatement. Sorry, folks. It's really, really good through the years, but not this year. So we'll do better. We'll do our best. B Bean says Twitter is a cesspool. Yeah, for a large part, it is. But you could say that about all social media. I love this call coming in here. You could say that about all social media. However, I am there because I have to be there. And I think we decided that our next venture to really get after it and really become a presence will be on, I believe, don't hold me to this, Instagram. We've got an Instagram account. Check it out. Let me find. Oh, I know why. I'm in the Florida State folder. Give me 2 seconds, Mike. Then we'll take your call. Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. Search Mark Rogers TV. Thank you for that. You can also catch the, I believe the links are in the description section. Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. Thank you for the contribution. What happened to my Instagram banner? Did somebody delete it? That's not supposed to delete it. That somebody was probably me. All right. Anyway, we will get to that later. We have a particular caller here who I don't want to reference their name because then I would be violating my own New Year's resolution. So I can't do that.
I wanted to see if you'd take the bait.
You guys change your names on those handles. I don't even know how to do that.
Oh, come on. I'll let you have a pass.
But then again, I'm not calling in shows to even know what's. Yeah, it's a Mark Rogers TV on mine. Mike, how you doing?
Can't complain. How you doing?
I'm good. Are you healing up?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
I'm gonna be sore for a while.
Yeah.
Process. You said you're 2-5 in the bowls.
I am 2-5. I missed 2 of them, meaning I did not predict them because I forgot about them. And Corey gave me hell the other night because he said, "What's your bowl record?" And I told him, and then he said, "Well, you didn't pick one of the games, or there's been such and such games played." And I said, "Yeah, I didn't pick last night's game. I completely forgot that there was a bowl game." And he said, "Well, don't forget there's a bowl game tonight." And then I forgot that one too. So I missed 2 of the games. Yeah, I'm 2-5.
That's a
I
little
picked
shocking.
Syracuse last night.
Yeah, so did I. Now, I the good news for that one is that was my 1 point. My 1
Oh
point
yeah,
confidence game.
that's interesting. Out of how many? 41? That was your 1-pointer?
That was my 1-pointer.
Good call on that one.
Well, the thing, I mean, I didn't know because I mean, I thought Syracuse was better, but they've kind of got a little turmoil. Plus, I don't know, when they were kind of sticking to Alabama. I don't know if that was more of a blip or a trend. I mean, I didn't really go through South Florida's entire schedule to really see how good they really were.
Well, this is what I did, Mike. I did that because I've got a pretty good handle on Syracuse, but I knew nothing about South Florida other than their record. And Syracuse gave us a season that you would expect out of a 6-6 ACC team. Like, they played some decent games, then they played some horrendous games, and they were all over the place. But they didn't really get blown out much. And so then I went to South Florida's schedule, and I'm like, and I remembered from doing the Alabama-Michigan stats comparison that South Florida had the number 131 defense in the country. And then I looked at their scores for this season, and I'm like, oh my word, they were giving up like 50 points like it was nothing. And I thought, if Syracuse is hanging with just about everybody in the ACC, playing a decent game against almost everybody, and South Florida's given up 59 to Memphis and 55 to Navy and whoever else it was, I'm like, come on. That's why I made the pick I did.
I kind of felt funny. I mean, I really thought that, if both teams were at full strength, I thought Syracuse would win. Of course, I mean, hard to tell now because even if they were at full strength, I mean, I didn't explain the complete ass whipping they just took.
Did you watch any of the game?
I watched it early on. I think once it got to like 21-0.
Yeah.
It was like early second quarter, 21-0, and Syracuse just looked dead in the water. I was like, I can't watch this anymore.
Yeah. That's similar to tonight's game. I'm going to sit down. I want to see a college football game. So I'm just going to sit down, try to not work, do other things, and just, I want to sit and enjoy a college football game. I don't care how mediocre these teams are. And I had the same approach last night. And the first thing that pissed me off was I was like, I didn't know that Syracuse had like a number 89 wide receiver playing quarterback. I might not have picked them. They were down to like their 4th string quarterback. And so that was a disaster. And I just couldn't believe they only had 159 yards of total offense. And I'm sure most of that was actually when the game was over. Like, they couldn't move the ball against one of the worst defenses in the country. I was like, this is pathetic.
Yeah, I just had this. I mean, I basically went off the fact that they were 6-6 in the ACC, which is easily the worst of the 5 conferences. So,
but South Florida was 6-6 in the American Conference.
Yeah, like I say, and I know that they had some bad games, but I always thought, I mean, I think that was the game Buckner played. Milroe didn't play.
Yes.
But still, I mean, holding Alabama 17, I was like, I wonder if they can kind of muster that up for one more game.
Listen to these scores, though, against these marginal teams. They gave up 29 to Rice, 30 to Navy. Then they gave up 56 to UAB, 56 to FAU, 59 to Memphis, 49 to Texas San Antonio. I'm looking at these scores thinking Syracuse should run up 45 points easy on these guys.
I thought it would be in at least the 30s. Like, I guess like I saw other games that I thought would be a little bit more decisive, and like I said,
Sure.
if I was a little bit more confident, it had nothing to do with the fact that I thought South Florida was a great team. It's just that I wasn't convinced that Syracuse was a quality team for them to play. So that was why they were my 1 point. And thank God they were.
So how are you doing so far?
I am 7-3. And I will say this. The other reason I almost thought about watching more of this game was because I was 17. I thought I was going to be 6-4 because I had Western Kentucky. And if you remember early on in that game, Old Dominion was beating Western Kentucky. It was like 35-14 late in the
Yep.
third. And I went to bed. I was like, well, screw this. I lost this one. I was wake up to the score in the morning. And then I would come on in the morning and it's like, wow, do you see that comeback? I'm like, what? Don't tell me they pulled a Stanford. And I went online and I'll say, I'll be damned they did. And Stanford's a reference to the Colorado game.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever everybody went to bed at halftime when it was 29-0, thinking, okay, there's no way Stanford's going to come back from 29-0. And they came back from 29-0.
I am glad that I hung out for that game and watched it all.
And right now, there's that Mr. Mittens guy. Geez, I want to know what he's on.
9-1.
Well,
Wonder
he's
who
not.
that is.
He's not the only 9. Well, but I found out what he did was the first 7 games of the first day. Was it the 15th?
Yeah.
15th? Those were his 43, 42, 41, 40, 39,
Ooh.
38, 37. So like,
Wow.
okay,
Well,
and if I lose to that, I get it. But me and Traveling Fools, we kind of have a little running banter back and forth. So if I finish over him, that'll be fun.
yeah, you're off to a good start.
I was ahead of him, but I guess I think what was it? I'm trying to think of who played Wednesday.
There's been 10 bowl games. Well, I didn't pick the Celebration Bowl either. That's right. That must have been on there.
I
I've
needed
only
that
picked
one.
7.
That was my 43 pointer because I mean I don't know much about schools, but I figured one of them is 11-1, the other is 6-5.
Oh, okay.
So that was my 43 pointer. And the funny thing is that Florida A&M, which was the 11-1 team, they were losing most of that game. So
Everybody, see, I went down to the bottom. I thought I was going to embarrass somebody. Not that I wanted to, but I thought I was going to be embarrassing a few people. But those people don't have bad records. They have good records.
yeah, I guess they just took,
Yeah, they've saved their points, probably for teams that they know.
and see, I tend to have higher scores for whenever it's like a top 3 Power 5 versus a top 3 Power 5 in that conference.
Yeah.
I don't tend to put high numbers on those kind of games. Those are the ones that could kind of go either way because those are the ones that are more susceptible to opt-outs and more susceptible to coaching changes and things like that where something could really flip. I think the only Power 5, good Power 5 versus good Power 5 I have high, like most people, I think everybody has Georgia and pretty high over Florida State. And
I have at times selected the dumb fan base of the day, but if this trend continues, I am going to have to select the voice of college football fan base as the smartest fan base, period. These records, like there are 2 or 3 5-5 records out of, I think, 30 people. And everybody else is 9-1, 8-2, 7-3.
yeah, and I think I think Mr. Mittens actually because he had a loss before this, so I guess he got South Florida over Syracuse. But
hardly any of these games have been an obvious pick. There's been a lot of pretty small point spreads on most of the games.
yeah, there were some that. Well, I thought that I figured Florida A&M Howard would have been, and I'm looking at the public pick, and it's Florida A&M 98% picked it, and Howard 2% picked it.
Oh, okay. So let me start from the top here. So we had Ohio Georgia Southern, and Georgia Southern was a 3 or 4 point favorite, and Ohio won, so we had a slight upset. Then what you just told me about Florida A&M and Howard, I know nothing about that, but like you say, a 10-1 against a 6-5. Jacksonville State, Louisiana, that was like a field goal spread. Like that was not obvious, and that went to overtime.
Yeah.
This App State Miami game, they played in a monsoon, and App State was like a 6-point favorite. They won by 4. Fresno State they were an underdog, weren't they, against New Mexico State?
I think they were
Slightly, and they won.
They
Like,
blew.
I'm pointing out why I'm so surprised by these records being as good as they are, because these point spreads have been close. UCLA was a 6-point underdog, and they won.
I don't know why UCLA was a 6-point underdog, to be honest.
Well, they haven't looked too good recently.
Yeah, but I mean, Boise State, they, like I said, they were they kind of limped into their conference championship game. Now they did win it, but weren't they like 7-5?
They still won the Mountain West.
Yeah.
I would like to know the all-time record of Power 5 teams against Group of 5 teams in bowl games.
I imagine it's probably pretty good. I mean, occasionally you'll get like a, Tulane and USC last year, but I think that's more the exception than the norm.
Yes. But you also have to understand that most of the Power 5s that are playing the Group of 5s are 6-6 Power 5s and 7-5s playing 11-1s, 10-2s most of the time.
Yeah.
So they are punching up.
Which makes sense,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of times, the 6-6, 7-5 group of 5s will play another 6-6 or 7-5 group of 5.
Yeah.
It's kind of rare.
Tonight we got who do you got tonight? Georgia Tech, UCF.
Georgia Tech, UCF. I have UCF, and that's for 29 points.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a decent one. I mean, yeah, the big ones, like I said, I've got my 43. My 42, I have Troy over Duke. Now, part of this is a slight homer pick. Like I said, I got my Masters at Troy. But no Riley Leonard,
Sure.
Now, Manny Diaz is not going to be coaching this game, is he?
I don't think so. Coaches don't typically do that. I know Luke Fickell did last year, but that's pretty rare.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So
that's really rare.
But on the flip side, I'm not sure if Summerall is going to coach this game either, because he got hired away.
Yeah.
But I mean, Troy's a really good team, and they've been a pretty good program for quite a few years now. Like I said, they went to LSU in Baton Rouge. They beat LSU, and that was when they had a number of.
Mike, you're going back like 5 years.
Well, they also beat Nebraska and Lincoln. I mean, but I'm saying, they've been a.
Yeah, I know.
For the recent past, they've been a pretty solid 10 win team. I mean, they're on the right track. They're trending.
Yeah, so this year they had one Power 5 game. They went to Kansas State and got pasted pretty well, 42-13. I watched some of that game.
Yeah. But, like I said, Duke is a 7-5 team in the ACC with no coach, and arguably I would think that a good chunk of their record is based off of Riley Leonard being healthy at the time. It seemed like they kind of dipped whenever he went out. So the stars just seem to line up for Troy to nail that one. And
I am hoping to just watch a lot of football tomorrow.
Oh, I plan on watching a lot of it too.
It's going to be kind of difficult for me to see. It's only somewhat unfortunate because my favorite bowl games are once the Power 5 teams start playing, and that's of course going to be next week. But I'm going to be spending a lot of time with my kids, so I'm probably going to miss almost all of that, like Monday through Thursday run, and then I'll try to catch up. So I'm going to enjoy tomorrow. James Madison Air Force. I look forward to that. And Utah and Northwestern.
Yeah, that's another one. That's my third highest P5 versus P5, I think.
With Utah.
Yeah, I have that 37 for Utah. The only ones I have higher are the two does, in my opinion, and that's LSU over Wisconsin and Georgia over Florida State. Those just seem. That's like if either one of those don't hit, then
yep,
I lose. I start to question the validity of college football as I know it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think Georgia, wins big without a quarterback. Not that Tate Rodemaker's not okay, but yeah, there's just too much working against Florida State in that game. And I do think that the Northwestern story's great. I am going to be rooting for them. I would love to see them win a bowl game, but Utah is just a different level team.
And I base out of the fact that the quarterback they call it the pig farmer apparently is going to be playing this game.
Yes.
And Northwestern, they did have, as down as they were supposed to be, they did have the luxury of playing in the Big Ten West.
Yes. It is remarkable what they pulled off, but I don't see them winning this game. Although Northwestern was a pretty heavy underdog about 5 years ago against Utah in the Holiday Bowl, and they pulled it out.
Different team
sure.
for sure.
Yeah.
This isn't a team that's coming off of 1-11 with all sorts of questionable issues and future sanctions coming up.
For sure. Okay, Mike, anything else?
Nope. I just figured I'd call in here. I just want to see if you'd say my StreamYard name.
I did not take the bait. I saw the switch up there. Maybe if you would have had a different profile pic there, but I saw that it was you. So
okay, next time I'll put a picture of Brutus up there. That way it fits.
All right, Mike. We'll see you. You've said enough.
Okay,
You're
thanks,
done.
Mark.
All right, let's keep it going here at the Voice of College Football. I believe we've got Valdez showing up. Look at this. Valdez, what's going on tonight?
Hey, how you doing, Mark Rogers?
I'm doing well. Good to see you.
Yeah, good hearing from you. Can you hear me okay?
We got you loud and clear.
Okay, so Mark, I wanted to call because a lot of people are not being honest with Florida State and Florida State fans.
Okay.
We're running around talking about at least this is the narrative. We got to get out of the ACC because we can't win because we're in the ACC, even though Clemson just won 2 national titles not too far back in the ACC, and Florida State won in 2013 in the ACC. Mark, I need you to be honest. You worked at ESPN.
Yeah.
This was a snub move in favor of corporate sponsors who wanted to see Nick Saban versus Jim Harbaugh. This had nothing to do with Florida State being in the ACC. Do you agree or disagree?
Well, I don't know that for sure. I know that I wouldn't say that it wasn't that, but here's the issue. I would have a better sense of what's going on here if Jordan Travis was healthy, because the committee does have a legitimate out in picking against Florida State. I'm not saying that they should have. All my sympathies go to Florida State. They were undefeated. They won the ACC. They should be in the playoff. However, the committee is not obligated by conference championships or undefeated records or anything else. And one of the criteria is making an evaluation of a team without a key player, especially a quarterback. And they decided to leave Florida State out. Now, are there, and we just talked about this, I don't know if you caught the beginning of the show with the Florida State guys. I addressed all that in terms of, are they being coerced? And that's going to be part of this lawsuit that Florida State's, this is going to be key in their fight in this lawsuit against the ACC to show that they're being, relegated to lower status because ESPN and has other objectives, meaning the SEC and other more important clients.
Well, Mark, here's what I would say. Florida State needs to first explain how both them and Clemson won national titles in the ACC. So that would be my first thing. My second thing would be this. I woke up last Saturday before the college football committee hit college football world with that move to a narrative that was very strange to me. Out of the blue, the talk was as soon as ESPN college game day came on, the narrative was there's no way we could put Florida State in because they're down to their third string quarterback. I've been following college football since the 80s. Never heard anything like that. And in fact, had Alabama been playing with their backup, I promise you, Alabama, irrespective of who wasn't on the roster, Alabama would have gotten in the game had they went 13-0. Do you disagree, Mark Rogers?
Oh, Alabama would be in the playoff. Yes, with a backup quarterback.
So Florida State's beef, other than being broke, that's a whole different story. That's really what this is all about. They're financially behind the 8 ball.
Yes, that's what it's about, is trying to get out of the ACC so they can make money and keep up with everyone.
Yeah, but their beef is not really with ACC. It's really with the ESPN collusion with the college football committee. Because nobody's talking about the narrative that appeared out of nowhere Saturday morning. Only ESPN College Game Day was talking about it. The Big Noon 12 didn't have that narrative. That didn't get the ball got started rolling because of ESPN. They knew. Here's the setup, Mark. You tell me what you think. Jim Harbaugh versus Nick Saban, and the winner of them two, either or versus Texas. Is that not where the corporate advertisers want all the money to go? You tell me, Mark Rogers, versus Florida State and Georgia.
Okay.
You tell me.
I'm going to tell you, Faldis, and I don't make things up, nor do I take stances on things that I don't know for sure. And this is the reason one of the reasons I don't know for sure. We have seen the committee make other decisions in other years where they did not take the big brand. They didn't take the TV ratings team. They took Cincinnati. They took TCU. They took other teams that were not as talented to be in the playoff and took the ratings hit. Correct?
This is correct. But here's the thing. At the time, ESPN wasn't up against it. The college football contract that they have is about to be up for grabs. And in order to bid with other networks, you need more money in the pot. And this was the last gasp at it. Like, if we don't get it this year, we might not have a chance later on. So let's just swing for the fences. We got to get Alabama versus Michigan and the winner of those versus Texas. This is why you can't have Georgia and Florida State in there. Because Georgia and Florida State, in my opinion, are better teams than both Michigan and Washington. If you put them in the ring with Washington Georgia and Florida State, I take Georgia and Florida State versus Washington and Michigan all day. But Michigan, Georgia and Florida State are wild cards. There's no guarantee that if you put Georgia and Florida State in the mix, you're going to get the outcome of either Michigan or Alabama versus Texas, which is where the money game at for the national title. Because if you put Georgia and Florida State in the mix, you might end up with Georgia and Florida State versus whoever. So, in my opinion, Washington and Michigan are pawns. We'll have Texas play Washington, and we'll have Alabama play Michigan. Win-win, because we think Alabama is a stronger team than Texas, and they'll play a stronger team because we think Michigan is a stronger team than Washington. You can't say that with Georgia and Florida State in the mix. It's a toss-up. You can lose your money betting against Florida State and Georgia, in my opinion. What do you think?
Florida State is not going to win this court case, this legal battle, because of everything that you just stated, unless in the process of discovery, they can uncover communications that will show that there was collusion and that they were suppressed, that they were chosen over, not for reasons to decide the better football teams, but because of business reasons. Now, if that comes to light, then that makes their case, among other things. But if they can't, this committee can stand. They can make an absolute open and shut case that they selected the 4 best teams. And that's all they're selected to do. That's all they're charged to do, is select the 4 best teams. And so if Florida State cannot battle that in discovery and get that discovered, they can't just fight a legal battle to say we were snubbed, we were undefeated, we won a conference championship, and so that proves that you snubbed us. That doesn't prove anything. The committee has a litany of criteria that they're held to, and none of those guarantee that an undefeated team or a conference champion is going to make the playoff. And they are off the hook with the quarterback injury. They have to have evidence be revealed that shows that ESPN in particular and this college football playoff committee are against them and making selections based on business reasons and not football reasons. If they can do that, among other things, and we just talked about that, and we just found out a lot of things from our guy Chris Frazier on Spear Addicts, that a lot of things that have changed in this grant of rights after Florida State and the rest of the ACC teams signed the grant of rights, a lot of things were changed to work against them. And that's another ace that they've got apparently to play in this legal battle.
Listen, there is circumstantial evidence that ESPN has been colluding. Now, remember, the Big Ten a few years ago, I can't remember the exact year, but there were like 3 conferences that were against expanding the college football playoffs because they came out and made a statement that ESPN was trying to hit everybody with a move so that they can lock in the college football playoff and have enough money to outbid other networks when the contract came up open for bid again. So if I'm Florida State, I'm bringing, or the state of Florida, I'm bringing that to the equation also. Because 3 conferences came out and made statements against ESPN collusion, saying the reason we're going against expansion is because in terms of who holds the rights to the college football playoff, that would give ESPN a monopoly. I'm telling you, Mark, at the end of the day, this is a collusion between ESPN and the college football committee to get Michigan versus Alabama and the winner of that versus Texas. That's all this is. Florida State doesn't have a beef with the ACC. The real beef is with ESPN and your money managers, who's ever at the school managing the athletic department budget. That's where the real beef is at. But, you know, when you're desperate people do desperate things.
But
and
Valdez,
so from my viewpoint, Mark, this is how I see it.
So Valdez, even if the committee would have made the selection of Florida State was in the playoff this year, Florida State's football program would still be earning $30 or $40 million less than Big Ten teams and SEC teams every year.
Yeah, but so does the University of Miami. You don't see them going on a tirade and whining and complaining. And I mean, so really,
Florida State was already they were already in the process of fighting this battle before they got snubbed.
Mark, I'm telling you, once you look behind it, years back, there were some reports that FSU financially was up against it. This is nothing new. And I'm telling you that it's a money management going on at the University of Florida State. I'm just stating what the facts are. Nobody cares to cover that because FSU trying to get out of the ACC and the whole narrative about the ACC being a bad conference is a sexier storyline to go with. But the real story is that FSU is broke in terms of athletics. I'm just telling you what the facts are in the great state of Florida. I'm from Florida. And I don't know why the national sports media is not covering the story. FSU is broke. So I'm just putting the facts out there. And they're looking for any lifeline to hang on to them right now. Okay. You know, let's go at the ACC. Hopefully, by the way, has anybody invited Florida State to that's the Big Ten or the SEC invited Florida State?
No.
Florida State fans are talking like it's a done deal. I'm convinced that the Big Ten would take Miami before they take Florida State any day. What do you think, Mark?
Well, we know that Miami gained AAU status, so they've got that on Florida State. They've got a larger TV market. And
much larger.
Yeah.
Much larger.
Yeah, it's not even close. Yeah, it's a top 5 market versus a 60 mark.
Tallahassee top 100, bottom 100.
Whatever it is. Yeah, I'd have to look that up. It's probably like 75 or 80, if that. Yes, not even close in terms of that. However, the TV ratings are similar. Now, if Miami is humming on all cylinders and we get the
That's the
Miami of 20
difference, Mark.
years ago,
That's the difference. If Miami is humming, they'll blow Florida State out of the water in terms of ratings.
that remains to be seen. I don't know.
I think that's fact. There's a reason why ESPN did like 800 30 for 30s on Miami and 0 on Florida State.
Well,
Why
Miami's
ESPN is
had
always
a more-
banging. Once Miami get going, college football is different.
Miami has had a much more colorful past to do 30 at 30s on. Would you agree?
Just like Nick, just like the what's the guy that coached Colorado? He's a more colorful guy.
Yeah.
Same thing with Miami. Once they're running, more eyeballs will go to Miami than Florida State any day. But Miami is just a more colorful team. They more dynamic. It's like when Alabama's winning, a lot of people watch, but it's pretty black and white. There's no gray areas. It's just pretty black and white. The schoolboys, you show up, you play good ball, and you go to the NFL. When Miami's going, there's a ton of storylines going in all directions. Oh, by the way, we are turning out NFL talent, and
I get your point. Yes, Miami was a show at one point. They were a spectacle. They were an attraction. But are they still that now? We know that they don't win like that. But I mean, even if Mario is the guy and he builds this program with top 5 recruiting classes and they start to win again, just because they got the same helmets and jerseys on than they did in 2001, are they going to be that same Miami that people are going to be attracted to? That was a moment in time. That was a program that was, as you know, a microwave dynasty and a new wave of college football, new swag, a new way to play, all of that. But that's in the past. I don't know if that can be recreated just because you wear the same uniforms.
Fair enough, Mark. I mean, it remains to be seen. And we know that Mario Cristobal is a pretty straightforward, up and down, button up guy. So who knows? But Mark, it's been fun talking to you. My first time. I got to get out of here. So I enjoy listening to you and all your shows. And we agree most times, but there are some times we disagree. But anyway, I enjoyed chatting with you. Enjoy your holidays, and I'll talk with you later.
Merry Christmas, Valdez. I appreciate it, man. Thank you. Valdez has been watching for a long time and just let us know this is the first time he's called. I thought it was the first time Valdez has called. Hopefully he calls back. Came with a strong opinion. See, here's the deal, folks. This is how I approach things. I am very adamant about certain points that I make. And if I know that I've got my facts lined up and it's accurate and I am convicted of this point, then I'm going to fight it to the hilt. There are other things, like when speculation is brought up, I'm not going to latch onto a conspiracy theory and claim it to be true. I will latch onto it and say, well, these are the reasons why it could be true. And these are the reasons why we see evidence that it's probably not true. But everything that he just stated right there, I don't completely 100% disagree with any of it. I'm just saying that on the surface, the decision that the committee made, they have every right to make. Whether you consider it to be a good decision because they selected the 4 best teams, or you consider it to be a bad decision because they left out a team that had the credentials to go to a playoff and couldn't do anything more than what it accomplished. Win a conference championship, go 13-0. Whether you think that was a good decision or bad decision, as long as it was an honest decision, that's all I care about. I still think they made the wrong decision, but as long as it was an honest decision and they believe we selected the 4 best teams, regardless of record, 4 best teams, those are the 4 best teams. I would simply argue that they have not done that in the past. TCU, by the evaluation of most college football people, including myself, and that's before 65-7 against Georgia. That was at the time that TCU was selected. I said they should be in the playoff. We are selecting 2 teams, Georgia and Michigan, who have undefeated records and won conference championships. Then after that, we're taking 2 teams that have the best records in college football. That's where they went after that, because Clemson had 2 losses, Utah had 3 losses. So we had no other conference champions that were in the mix under consideration. So the 2 other selections were the 2 teams with the best records in college football, TCU and Ohio State. And maybe a few people had issue with Ohio State, but largely no one did, and especially after they played Georgia. But TCU, a lot of backlash there. And I said the same thing before the 2 games that they played than I did after. If you're going on merit, TCU earned that playoff spot. If you're going on talent evaluation and the evaluation of how good the team is on the field, I'm not just talking about star ratings. I'm talking about evaluation of the play on the field. They're not one of the 4 best teams. Cincinnati was not one of the 4 best teams in college football. So I don't like how the criteria has never changed. It's the same criteria in 2023 as it was in 2014. Same exact criteria, but the committee selects what criteria they are going to use for that team versus that situation versus that year. This year we do this. This year we do that. This year we do this in this situation, but we do this in this situation that's different. They've got a list of criteria: undefeated record, conference championships, injuries, strength of schedule, game control, ... They've got the same criteria, but they ignore some of that criteria in certain situations and apply it in other situations and order it differently. That's the issue I've got with the committee. Now, if the committee is being manipulated by ESPN, then we're in bad shape. We're in bad shape if this is all TV controlled, which I think most of us believe that. They're putting on a TV show. Now, fortunately, if you select 4 of the teams that are close to the 4 best teams in college football, you're going to have a good TV show, and you're going to have a not 100%, but a almost 100% legitimate national championship. I want Florida State to beat Georgia because I want to award Florida State with a national championship. Not a complete national championship. There will be another national championship, but 2 national champions this year. Yes, Richard, it is called collusion. We've called it that even on this show tonight. Folks, we do appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. It's about 6:20 Eastern Time. Hopefully you're settling in for a nice holiday weekend. A few programming notes here would be, one is that even though Monday is Christmas, I got to tell you, my Christmas really starts on Tuesday. So my kids are coming in and we are going to enjoy Christmas, and other family members coming in on Monday. Monday's Christmas. Yes, Tuesday afternoon. So we are going to continue the content, continue to derive this channel, of course, next week. But I will be absent for much of the week. This is what we plan on doing actually next week is I am going to go live at approximately midnight every night next week. So starting on Tuesday, the day after Christmas, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, on through that week, especially Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, for sure, I'm going to show up after all the bowl games at roughly midnight for post game of the bowl games. I'm going to have to look at the bowl game schedule to let you know throughout the weekend what we're going to do. But you can be sure we are going to be here covering, of course, the college football playoff on New Year's Day. Of course, there's going to be post game. Maybe we go between games. We'll lay all that out. That sounds like a little project for me tonight, in addition to doing some personal project that I need to really get honed in on. All right, folks, we do appreciate you being here, but I say all that to let you know that we will be here for the Big Ten Live Show at 6 p.m. Eastern on Christmas Day. On Christmas Day, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, I'm going to be here because my Christmas will not have started. So we will carry on with the Big Ten Live Show Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Tomorrow, we'll see about tomorrow. We've got all those bowl games going on tomorrow. B-Bean, thank you. Had a fun conversation last night with Tim, and in the process, I was looking through old live streams and old videos. So I have never done this before, but on YouTube, you can select the oldest. Instead of the most recent videos and live streams, you can select the oldest. And man, I was bringing back memories of like people that I forgot that I had on, and the very first videos and live streams. That was crazy to look at. And I am excited as I am for Bowl Week, because I love Bowl Week and I hate the opt-outs, but we're going to have some semblance of a Bowl Week with most of the teams intact. That I'm reading these comments at the same time. Look at that. And so once we get to the off season, and I am not wishing for the off season because I miss college football and want to watch the games, but once we get to the off season, I'm excited about implementing a lot of good things here at the Voice of College Football. So we will get to it. May take some time, but we will get to it. Mark is a closet SEC fanboy. He's memorized by everything they do. He's memorized. The term, Mike, would be mesmerized. I have memorized, though, everything that they've done. Yes, I have memorized it all. It is so much better than everyone else. Taking my words and twisting them, aren't we? What a tangled weave we web. We weave. That's when I know it's time to say goodbye. Appreciate y'all being here at the Voice of College Football. Enjoy the football tonight. And we will see you at some point on Saturday right here at the Voice of College Football. Of us are on the internet pretty much all the time. It's fun. You get to socialize, you get entertained, and in this day and age, it's pretty much necessary. And even if you're one of those people that's not on the internet all the time, you know what is? Your personal information. And there are people out there trying to hack you all the time. They want your email address, they want your phone number, they want your place of employment, and they want to do bad things with it. There's also fairly legitimate corporations and companies that want your information. They want it for marketing purposes. They're going to buy it. They're going to sell it. They're going to trade it. At the very least, it's annoying to you. It's a nuisance. It's aggravating. Your email gets cluttered up with spam email. You get robocalls all the time. That's at the very least. At the worst, it's a threat to your family, to your friends, to your personal information, to your banking, to your finances, to your security, to your safety, to your identity. It can be pretty serious. This video is sponsored by Aura. I got hacked and it was pretty obvious. This was about 8 or 9 months ago, and there were red flags all over the place. And I didn't exactly know what to do, but I knew I needed to do something quickly. I mean quickly. I researched 8, 10, or 12 companies Immediately, I went all over the place. I asked people. I was online looking for the best company that could serve my needs and secure my information. You know who I found? Aura. And I'm glad I did. It was amazing. I contacted them. They got right back to me immediately. Their customer support is phenomenal. Their customer service is first rate, friendly. They are detailed. They know what they're doing and they do it right, and they will protect you. In addition to everything I just mentioned, they've got a password keeping service. They keep your credit score. They notify you anytime there's a possible data breach. This has happened to me a number of times. I'm getting notifications all the time when there's a possible compromise to my credit score or anything that I don't want. They've got a VPN that will allow you to browse the internet anonymously. It's amazing. And again, customer service support available 24/7. Click the link in the description section below and get 2 free weeks of Aura. Protect your finances, protect your information, protect your privacy, protect your identity. I did, and I'm glad I did. Aura, thank you so much for what you've done for me, and now for my Voice of College Football community.